Hello everyone. So today we will see the chemical properties of water. You know, water reacts with a large number of substances, and today we will deal with some of the important reactions that is carried out by water. Now the first reaction is amphoteric nature of water. Amphoteric means what? Amphoteric, you have heard about amphibians, frog, like it can live in water as well as in land. So you have studied some oxides like aluminum oxide and zinc oxides are amphoteric in nature, isn't it? In 10th standard. So what is mean by amphoteric? Which means it behaves as an acid as well as a base. So water is also capable of having that ability. That means water is capable of react with acid. It can react as an acid as well as it can act as a base. So that is called as amphoteric nature. That means water has the ability to act as acid as well as base, both. So water has got the ability to act as acid, both as acid and base. That is called as amphoteric nature. Okay. So it behaves as an amphoteric substance. So we will see how water acts as an acid and how water acts as a base. See, in the reaction, we have already studied in equilibrium, that is H2O plus NH3. When it reacts with ammonia, it acts as an acid. See, and ammonia, you know, it is a base. And it forms OH minus plus NH4 plus. That means this is the conjugate base and this is the conjugate base and this is the conjugate acid of this. Correct, you know that. So in this reaction, this water acts as a base. Now, in another reaction, for example, it can react as a base. For example, this H2O plus H2S, hydrogen sulfide, in equilibrium with H3O positive plus HS minus. See, in this reaction, water act as a base, isn't it? Water act as a base. So base means it will donate this thing, okay, that it's to form the H, and then this is an acid. This acid will donate a proton and this water is accepting a proton to form the H3O positive. So this water is acting as a base and this H2S is acting as an acid. So these two reactions shows that the water can act as an acid as well as a base. That is why we say that the water is amphoteric in nature, or the chemical property, the property of amphoteric in nature. Okay, then again water has again an ability to form self-ionization, or you will call it as autoprotolysis. What is it? Autoprotolysis. Autoprotolysis means what? Autoprotolysis means self-ionization. Autoprotolysis means self-ionization. So water has also the ability to form autoprotolysis. Autoprotolysis means, see, in this case, one molecule react with another molecule. That means it is act as both acid as well as a base to form this H3O positive plus OH minus ion. If I say this is acid and if I say this is base, now I can say this is the conjugate acid and this is the conjugate base. You know, conjugate acid base pair will differ by an H plus. It will differ by an H plus. So this is called as autoprotolysis or self-ionization reaction. Hope you understood this reaction. Okay, so this is the first chemical reaction, that is it is amphoteric in nature. That means it has got, or water has the ability to act both as an acid as well as a base. In the same time, the water has it undergoes autoprotolysis also. Autoprotolysis means self-ionization. Correct. Okay. Now the second reaction, the first reaction is amphoteric in nature. The second reaction is a redox reaction. Second reaction is a redox reaction involving water. Redox reaction means, you know, either oxidation happens or reduction happens. Now in the reaction, for example, if water, when it react with the highly electropositive metals means what? S block elements group 1, that is alkali metals, that is highly electropositive metals. So when water react with the highly electropositive metals, this water gets reduced to hydrogen. See, this water gets reduced to hydrogen. So in this case, reduction happens, isn't it? Reduction means removal of oxygen, addition of hydrogen or removal of oxygen. So in this case, reduction happens. Correct. So water is reduced to hydrogen, and this is also an example for making, or you can say it is a great source of hydrogen. If we want to prepare hydrogen, dihydrogen, this reaction can be applied. Okay, so this is a reduction. Now one more reaction in which oxidation happens is photosynthesis. You all know photosynthesis, that is carbon dioxide plus water will give C6H12O6 plus water plus O2. See, in this case water is oxidized to oxygen. See, water is oxidized to oxygen means what? Oxidation means addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen. So here this water is, you just balance it, right? I am not balancing it. So water is reduced to oxygen means removal of hydrogen and forming oxygen. Correct. So this is reduction and this is oxidation. So water can be involved in redox reaction. So that is the second type of reaction. So just balance it. Okay. Now the third type of reaction is called as hydrolysis reaction. What is it? Hydrolysis reaction. Now what is this hydrolysis reaction? Hydrolysis reaction means nothing but the addition of water into this compounds. Okay, addition of water into the compounds is mainly called as hydrolysis reaction. Okay, or we can say, we always says that the ionic compounds dissolves in water, isn't it? Or the dissolution in water by these compounds takes place. Why? Because the water has got a high dielectric constant. The water has got a high dielectric constant. That means up to 80, I think, water has got a high dielectric constant. And due to this property of dielectric constant, it has got a very, very strong hydrating tendency. Now what do you mean by hydrating tendency? It can attract, the compounds are attracted to water, or the water is being attracted by these compounds, and then the solubility happens or hydration happens. Not only solubility happens in the hydration, in coordination compounds, in coordination compounds, hydration means they are linked. They are called as ligands. This water act as ligands and they are linked to this metal ions. So that is called as hydrating or hydrolysis. Okay. So that means it dissolves many ionic compounds, and not only ionic compounds, they can dissolve certain covalent compounds also. Okay. So for example, in the case of P4O10, phosphorus oxide, phosphorus pentoxide, see, plus water will give you phosphoric acid. See, so it can react with water and form the acid. Correct. Or SiCl4, silicon chloride, that's a covalent compound. See, you have studied ionic compound dissolving in water, but some reactions are such that covalent compounds can be also dissolved in water, forming the corresponding products. So in this case, SiCl4 plus water will give you SiO2 plus HCl is formed. See, so these reactions can also happen, or water can also get soluble by the covalent compounds. Okay, so this is the third reaction. There is hydrolysis reaction. That means the water has got a very strong hydrating tendency, or that means what? That is dissolution or dissolving tendency. That is due to the fact that it has got a high dielectric constant. Okay. So then the last or the fourth reaction is hydrates formation. Not reaction, but hydrate formation. Now, what is the difference between hydrolysis and hydrate? Hydrolysis means the water is involved in the chemical reaction and it forms the compounds. But hydrates formation means from the solutions of this salt, or from, I can say, from salt to solutions, the hydrated salts can be crystallized out. Salts can be crystallized out. That is hydrates formation. Okay, that means association of water happens. I can say association of water happens. So that is called as hydrate formation. And mainly the hydrate formations can be of three types. One is, as I said, coordinated water. Coordinated water means, see, if I write the formula, you will be more easy to know. For example, see, CrH2O 6 times 3 plus. See, in this case what happens? This chromium is a metal. Okay, in this metal, this is ion. So metal ion, this water is getting hydrated and it can be crystallized out. Okay, if I draw the structure, you can very well know as water is not soluble, but it is forming coordinate bond with the water. So this is like it happens. See, so this is coordinated water. Now, second type of hydration is called as interstitial water. Interstitial water, you know, the water will be getting into the interstitial space between the compounds or molecules. Okay, example is BaCl2 to H2O. Normally, in most of the salt, it is hydrated, and this is called as water of crystallization. You have studied about that in the small classes. Water of crystallization. That is number of fixed number of water molecules which is present in one formula unit is called as what? The water of crystallization, or you can call it as interstitial water. And the third type is called as hydrogen bonded water. Hydrogen bonded water means what? Hydrogen bonded water means, for example, in case of CuSO4.5H2O, you know, hydrated copper sulfate. That is, it is like in the form of CuH2O 4 times SO4 2 minus dot H2O. So in this case, this is hydrogen bonded water. So that is CuH2O 4 times, then SO4 2 minus dot H2O. So CuSO4.5H2O in the hydrated form, in the hydrogen bonded form, you can write like this. Okay, so this is the fourth type of reaction with the water. So in the hydrated formation, three type: coordinated water, then interstitial water, and hydrogen bonded water. That is water in a hydrogen bonded state. You know what is hydrogen bond, isn't it? So that is called as hydrogen bonded water. So this is mainly the chemical reactions that is involved in water, or the chemical reactions that takes place in water. Okay, so hope you are clear with the chemical properties. Okay, now we will move on to the next topic, that is hard water and soft water. You know what is hard water and soft water. What we get is simply the soft water, isn't it? Why? How you differentiate hard water and soft water? In a simple way. In a simple way, we say the soft water what we use forms lather or foam when we take bath or when it reacts with soap, isn't it? Soft water will give foam or lather with the soap, whereas hard water doesn't give lather. Lather means, you know, right? Foam with the soap. That is the best example we can differentiate between hard water and soft water, isn't it? And we normally say that the rainwater is almost very, very, very pure. Correct? That is why we are doing the water harvesting and etc. So rainwater is very, very pure, but it may contain some dissolved gases from the atmosphere. And we know that the water as a whole is a very good solvent. We have already told because of the high dielectric constant, isn't it? So it can dissolve many salts. The water can dissolve many salts. Okay, now see why or how a water can be said as hard water is mainly due to, see, the presence of calcium and magnesium ion mainly. Okay, so the differentiation of this hard water and soft water is mainly the hard water contains calcium and magnesium ion in the form of salt, and in the form of which salt? In the form of bicarbonate salt, or in the form of chloride salt, or in the form of sulfate salt. See, or I can say hard water, it will act in the hard water. We can have calcium bicarbonate or calcium chloride or calcium sulfate, or you can have magnesium bicarbonate or magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate. So the presence of this calcium and magnesium salt in the form of what all? Hydrogen carbonate, chloride and sulfate makes this water hard. That is very, very important. So which salts makes this water salt? The answer is it can be calcium bicarbonate, it can be calcium chloride, or it can be calcium sulfate. At the same time, it can be magnesium bicarbonate or magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate. So these salt makes the water hard. Correct? Okay. Now we can, I have told you, we can differentiate this hard water and soft water by means of the reaction with the soap. The hard water does not give a lather with soap, whereas the soft water will give lather using soap. Okay. Now we will see how it reacts with the soap. You already studied soap is sodium or potassium salt of long chain fatty acid, isn't it? That is called soap. The definition of soap says that the soap is nothing but the sodium or potassium salt of long form fatty acid or a long chain carboxylic acid. If you take an example of a long chain carboxylic acid like stearic acid, just an example of stearic acid, what will happen? The sodium salt of that stearate, that is called as soap. So I will write C17H35COOH is the stearic acid. Now the sodium salt of stearic acid is what is called as a soap. So you can have this formula as soap. Now the soap containing the sodium stearate, isn't it? Sodium stearate is the soap. Now the soap containing the sodium stearate, if it reacts with the hard water means what? It must be calcium or magnesium ion. So generally I can write M2 plus ion. These are all in aqueous, right? All in aqueous. Will give you, see what happens. This salt, this M, that is the calcium or magnesium, will get precipitated as that soap. That means it will form C17H35COOM. The M must be what? Calcium or magnesium. Since it is 2, you can have twice. See? So this is the product you get, and the sodium from this soap is getting removed like 2Na+. Correct. So this is the precipitate. I can write it as a precipitate. So this is the precipitate, or you can say the hard water. The hard water forms precipitate, or in smaller classes you have studied one name which is called as scum, isn't it? Scum. That is called as precipitate. So the hard water forms a precipitate or a scum. Okay, scum with the soap. That is this reaction. That means the sodium is getting replaced by this calcium or magnesium. M can be calcium or magnesium. So the magnesium salt of this stearate is getting precipitated, thereby it is not getting lather when we use with the soap. That is why hard water is not good for laundry purpose or washing purpose. Okay, but in the same time, this is also not useful, or it is harmful for boilers. That is a very, very important application of hard water. This is this thing, that is in boilers. Have you heard of boilers? The disadvantage of hard water. Boilers. Boilers means huge boilers are there for in the petrochemical industries for making the water getting steamed for the power of electricity, generation of electricity. The water can be converted to steam. Okay, so the huge amount of water is in the boilers. Now what happens in this? If you have hard water in these boilers, what happens? The deposition of this salt will take place in the boilers, keeping its efficiency low. So in that boilers, at the sides of the boilers as well as at the bottom of the boilers, you can have deposition of the salt in the form of scales. That means as a precipitate. Okay, so that is, it reduces the efficiency of boilers. That is the main thing. That is the harmful effect. That is the reduction of efficiency in boilers due to hard water. Okay, there is a harmful effect of the hard water in the boilers, because every time you cannot take it out and clean it and then replace it, because it is a huge boiler. So it forms deposition as scales at a white precipitate. We can see that. So that is it will reduce the efficiency of this boilers. Okay, that is the harmful effect of this hard water. Okay, now when you talk about the hardness of water, you can mainly divide this hardness into two types. One, you can say it is the temporary hardness, and the other you can say as the permanent hardness. From the name itself, you know what is a temporary hardness and what is a permanent hardness. Temporary hardness means what? It is only at temporary. What is permanent hardness? It is throughout. So the hardness can be mainly divided or classified, or the hardness of water can be of two types. We can say one is temporary hardness and the other is the permanent hardness. This temporary hardness is mainly due to the presence of bicarbonate salt. Very, very important. What is it? For example, you know calcium and magnesium are the ions. So it must be due to calcium bicarbonate and magnesium bicarbonate. So temporary hardness is mainly due to calcium bicarbonate and magnesium bicarbonate. Whereas due to the chlorides and sulfides. See? These two. So this is about the hardness. If you talk about temporary hardness, it is mainly due to the bicarbonates in the calcium and magnesium. When we talk about permanent hardness, it may be due to the chlorides, for example, calcium chloride or calcium sulfate, or magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate. So due to this, the permanent hardness happens, and due to this calcium bicarbonate or magnesium bicarbonate, the temporary hardness happens. Correct? Okay. Now we will see how this temporary hardness can be removed from this hard water, and permanent hardness can be removed from this hard water. Okay, so hope you are clear with the temporary hardness and the permanent hardness of this water. Correct. Now first, it's very simple. That is why the first is boiling. If you boil the hard water, you can remove that temporary hardness of this hard water. Correct. So by boiling, we will see what happens. So first method for removing the temporary hardness is boiling. Now what happens during boiling? Now if you boil this hard water for a longer time, what happens? You know, the hard water contains this soluble bicarbonate, isn't it? This contains soluble, because this is the reason for this temporary hardness of that water. So it definitely contains the the calcium bicarbonate, or it can be a magnesium bicarbonate. So this is soluble. Now we want to get it precipitated, or we have to remove this calcium and magnesium from this water, so that this hardness will go and softness will come. So our agenda is to remove this calcium and magnesium. That is by boiling. The first method is by boiling. So if you boil it, I can write it in a chemical equation like, if you boil, for example, if the soluble calcium bicarbonate, the valency is twice, so we are putting this calcium bicarbonate on boiling, This calcium must be removed, isn't it? The calcium must be removed. So what happens? This will form calcium carbonate. So this on boiling gets precipitated as calcium carbonate, and you know calcium carbonate, calcium carbonate gets precipitated, and carbon dioxide is a gas, it will go off, no problem. So this calcium is being separated out and the water will become soft. The hardness of that water is getting removed by precipitating as calcium carbonate. Clear? And this is soluble, right? This is soluble and it becomes a precipitate and we can remove it. We can filter this precipitate and we will get a soft water. Clear? Which is used for laundering, etc. and for drinking purpose, etc. Correct. Now, if you say magnesium bicarbonate, calcium bicarbonate, calcium carbonate is precipitated. Now, in the case of magnesium bicarbonate, it is not getting precipitated as magnesium carbonate, but it is getting precipitated as magnesium hydroxide plus carbon dioxide plus water. Now, why? Why this magnesium is not precipitating as magnesium carbonate? Instead, it is precipitated as magnesium hydroxide. It is precipitated as magnesium hydroxide. Okay. So why it is precipitated as magnesium hydroxide? That is why? Because see, the solubility product of magnesium hydroxide, we have studied the solubility product of magnesium hydroxide. The solubility product of magnesium hydroxide is high. It's very, very high when compared to the solubility product of magnesium carbonate. See, that is the reason why magnesium hydroxide is precipitated rather than magnesium carbonate. Because in calcium bicarbonate, calcium carbonate is precipitated. And if you think about that way, in this case also magnesium carbonate gets precipitated. But it is not that case. The magnesium hydroxide is precipitated instead of magnesium carbonate. That is the reason here. The reason behind is the solubility product of the magnesium hydroxide is greater than the solubility product of the magnesium carbonate. That is why magnesium hydroxide is precipitated in preference than the magnesium carbonate. Okay, so this is the first method in order to remove this temporary hardness by boiling. Now, second method for removing the temporary hardness is called as Clark's method. What is it? Clark's method. Okay, so what is this Clark's method? That is a very simple method. In this method, we are using lime. What is lime? You know, calcium hydroxide. So, we will put calcium hydroxide or lime in hard water and we can remove the hardness of the hard water. Now, how it is possible? In the same way, see, if you have calcium bicarbonate as a soluble thing in the hard water, when you treat with lime, that is calcium hydroxide, this one thing you remember is you have to put the calculated amount of this lime, not something you have to put. There must be some measurement in putting the lime, how much lime for how much water. So some calculated amount of lime, when it is added to this our hard water, what will happen? In the hard water, the calcium is there. It gets precipitated out as carbonate. So what happens? Calcium bicarbonate plus calcium hydroxide, that is lime. This calcium carbonate will get precipitated out. So the hardness is getting removed, isn't it? Plus water. Just balance it. Okay, I am not balancing. Correct. So by using lime, we can precipitate calcium carbonate and hardness of the water is removed. In the same way, we can write the equation for magnesium bicarbonate also. See, magnesium bicarbonate plus calcium hydroxide, the lime. Here, instead of, see, magnesium hydroxide is precipitated. You know why. Now the reason. Because the solubility product of magnesium hydroxide is, and also in this case calcium carbonate is also precipitated. See, In both case, in this case, both is getting precipitated because calcium is also there, and from magnesium it precipitates as magnesium hydroxide and not magnesium carbonate. So please remember that equation. The both will precipitate out. The both carbonate as well as the hydroxide can be precipitated and it can be filtered off and the hardness can be removed. So these are the two methods by which you can remove the temporary hardness of water. One is by boiling, isn't it? And it will precipitate out this calcium and magnesium hydroxide. You can filter it out and use it as a soft water. Second is Clark's method, in which lime is used, and when lime is used, it gets again precipitated. Now our main thing is we have to get precipitate out this calcium and magnesium, which is responsible for the hardness, isn't it? So that is the thing. So now we know how to remove the temporary hardness of water, that is boiling and Clark's method. Now we will see how the permanent hardness can be removed, isn't it? Now we will see how the permanent hardness can be removed. We know, already I told you the permanent hardness is due to the chlorides and sulfates, isn't it? The chlorides and sulfates of what? Calcium and magnesium. So this calcium and magnesium, the calcium chloride or calcium sulfate or magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate is responsible for the permanent hardness of the water, isn't it? So the permanent hardness is due to the soluble. See, remember, in the temporary also we can say soluble bicarbonates. In the same way, this is also soluble calcium chloride, soluble calcium sulfate, etc. So it is the presence of soluble salts of calcium and magnesium in the form of chlorides and sulfates in water. Clear? So it is in the formation of soluble chlorides and sulfates in water. Now this permanent hardness cannot be removed by simply boiling because it is sulfate and chloride. If it was bicarbonate, you can remove very well. But permanent hardness, since the permanent hardness is due to the chlorides and sulfates, you cannot remove the permanent hardness by simply boiling. So it can be removed by some other suitable methods. And the first method is treating the hard water with the washing soda. You know what is washing soda, isn't it? That is sodium carbonate. So the first is by treating the hard water with the washing soda. Okay, we will see two reactions for two methods by which you can remove the permanent hardness of water. The first one is with the treatment of this hard water by washing soda, that is Na2CO3. Now what happens is, when this washing soda reacts with our chlorides or sulfates, that you have to understand. The permanent hardness is mainly due to the calcium or magnesium salt of this chlorides and sulfates. So when this washing soda is treated with any of this one, what will happen? It will form insoluble carbonates. It will form insoluble carbonates. Now, for example, if we have MCl2, MCl2 means it is CaCl2 or MgCl2. It can be both. Okay, CaCl2 and MgCl2. So when MCl2, that is our chlorides, okay, calcium or magnesium, when it is treated with the Na2CO3, what will happen? This carbonate, that is MCO3, for example, calcium carbonate or magnesium carbonate is precipitated and 2NaCl is there. See? So we precipitated this calcium and magnesium, or the calcium and magnesium is out of that. So which makes the permanent hardness. So when it gets outed or when it gets precipitated, it can be filtered out and we will get the soft water or the water which is free from this calcium and magnesium, which is used for laundering, etc., or for the drinking purpose, etc. Now if you say an example like sulfates, chlorides and sulfates, right? So MSO4 plus Na2CO3, again what happens? MCO3 is getting precipitated plus Na2SO4. See? So this is the chemical reactions happening in this treatment with the washing soda. So this is the first method by which you can remove the permanent hardness of water. Okay, you have to study only one or two. Now, the second method. So, first method for the permanent hardness removal is with the washing soda. Now, the second method you call it as Calgon's method. What is it? Calgon's method. Now, actually, what is Calgon? Calgon is nothing but, you know, it is Na6P6O18. It is called as sodium hexametaphosphate. I will write sodium hexametaphosphate. This is called as Calgon. That is Na6P6O18. Which this compound, which is commercially called as Calgon, which is nothing but sodium hexametaphosphate. Okay, now we will see what happens when this Calgon is reacted with the hard water. So first of all, before reacting with hard water, what happens is the sodium hexametaphosphate, that is Na6P6O18, will undergo ionization to form Na plus Na4P6O18 2 minus. See, 2 sodium atom gets removed. 2 sodium atom gets removed as 2 Na plus, and the rest is, if 2 is gone, it will be Na4. The rest is Na4P6O18 is formed. Correct? Then what happens is, this remaining Na4P6O18 is reacted with our calcium or magnesium salt of this hard water. See, this M is what? See, it can be Ca2 plus or it can be Mg2 plus. Correct? It can be Ca2 plus or it can be Mg2 plus. So, M2 plus plus this Na4P6O18 2 minus. Okay, 2 plus and 2 minus. What it will form? It will form Na2, okay, Na2 P6O18. Listen carefully. How it will form? It will form Na2 because the 2, this is Na4, right? So, 2 Na is replaced by this 2 metal atom, that is calcium or magnesium. Correct? This 2 Na is replaced by, since the valency is 2, in this case it will be replaced by 1 metal atom. Correct? That is 1 metal atom calcium, 2 sodium goes for 1 calcium, right? Because calcium is having Ca2 plus but Na is having Na plus. So, if we want to remove 2 Na plus, we can only add 1 calcium because of the charge. Okay. So, you can very well include this metal atom or precipitate this metal atom in this. Correct. And so, we remove this calcium and calcium. So, we remove that hardness because the calcium or magnesium is responsible. Once you take this and form it into this complex, it is getting added. The calcium or the magnesium is getting added into this complex, this anion complex. It will be in the solution. Correct. So, they are removed and thereby the permanent hardness can be removed. So, this is the Calgon's method. Calgon's method for removing the permanent hardness of water. Okay, so hope you understood. The two methods you have studied for removing the temporary hardness is boiling and with the Clark's method. Clark's method means using lime, the calculated amount of lime. Now the second is by removing the permanent hardness. Permanent hardness is mainly due to the soluble sulfates and chlorides of calcium and magnesium. So that is two methods we have studied. One is by treating with washing soda. The carbonate is getting precipitated. It is filtered out and you have the soft water. Then second is the Calgon's method. The Calgon is nothing but sodium hexametaphosphate. First it undergoes ionization in order to remove this 2 Na plus to form an anion. This anion will react with the cation, that is M, being calcium and magnesium. Then it will form the metal atom is included or it is added into this anion complex and it remains in solution. without having any difficulty for the permanent hardness. So the hardness is removed in that way. 2 more is there in your textbook. If you want, you can refer to that, but this is enough for you. So there comes the end of this hydrogen chapter. The rest is hydrogen peroxide. The preparation, properties and the storage is deleted for this year. So the hydrogen chapter is over. So next session we will have the new chapter, that is S block elements. Hope you understood. Prepare your notes. Till then, thank you.